guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one. We're going to talk about the Rephr eye brush set. I ordered the mini version. Of course, if you guys don't know, Rephr eye brushes I absolutely love and adore, and they were coming out with a mini and a max version of their original set that they already had in their collection. So I wanted to test them out. Of course, if money was not a factor, I would have completely purchased the maximum and the mini version of it. But I felt like I have a lot of eye brushes. Like if you want to see, like I have a lot of eye brushes. I mean, if you've been watching YouTube for a long time and like big YouTubers, this is nothing. But I personally feel I have a lot of eye brushes, and most of them are like very big in size. Like when I started makeup, I started going for brushes that are bigger because that felt like worth the money somehow. I didn't know. I didn't know much about makeup, I feel like that time. But now I feel the more smaller you can get with the brush, more intricate you can be. I loved the max version of it too. And I feel like this is an absolutely brilliant, like a genius idea of coming out with their smaller and a bigger version of their original set. By the way, I do have their original set with me. And that's how I fell in love with this. Like this is dirty because I use it all the time and I've not like washed them. I've just like spot cleaned them, but we'll test everything out. This is their original set. So for example, this was number 16, not in this current set, but, and this was number 26. This is also not in the current set, but these four are. This is how the packaging comes in, okay? And then each individual brushes are like individually wrapped too. I'm just gonna take this out from here just because it makes a lot of noise. And this is the entire brush set. Again, I went with the mini version. This set, like individually the mini set as well as the maximum set, retails for $60 each. Originally, it would have retailed for $120. These are Japanese brushes. They are handcrafted and made in Japan. And this is made with natural uncut goat hair. Generally, the natural bristled brushes are a lot more expensive than the synthetic brushes. And that's why these brushes cost a lot. I know $60 is also not a cheap price, even if they say like 50% off, 120, now retailing for $60. But these brushes, once you use this, you know how easy your eye makeup gets into it. Like it's so easy to create any look and it blends so beautifully. Let me just tell you what all brushes are there. Of course, we have the number 1 mini brush, which is pinched at the ferrule, fluffy on the edges. Look at that. That's how the brush looks. Now let me compare it with the original number 1 brush, which I use it almost every day of my life. So this is the difference. Obviously this is dirty, okay? That's the original one. This is the new one. So you can see obviously the new one is much smaller. Again, when you wash this, this will get a little bit more fluffy. And I love this brush. Like I feel like if they would have come with like individual brushes instead of like the brush set, this brush I would have highly recommended. Like I've often thought about like if there was a smaller version of this brush, it would be great because I love to use this in the outer corners. And this would come in very handy for my halo eye looks for the inner corner as well as blending the outer edges. Absolutely love the cut of the brush. We'll see how this performs. The second brush, number 2. Let me show you the original version and the new version. This is exactly the same shape, just a little bit smaller. I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not, but I totally can see the difference. I feel like if I could have chosen the brushes like individually from other set, I would have chosen the max version of this number 2 brush. The smaller one would be great for inner corners and like extreme like blending the edges of the crease. But the maximum version would have just like made my life so much more easier to put shimmer on the eyelid because I absolutely love this number 2 brush. One of the top brushes that I would recommend, I would say. Definitely number 2 is going to be my go-to. We are going to use the number 2 mini and see how it rolls too. Then let's go to number 13 brush. Generally, I used to use my original number 13 for lower lash line. I love this brush for blowing out my lower lash line because it's super soft, one. Second, it is small enough to get into my lower lash line and not getting my eyeshadow really blown out, but it blends really, really well. I feel like this mini version is absolutely perfect. This is how both of them are considerably, let me show you like this. Yeah, considerably a smaller bristled brush. Really, really love this one. I feel like this would just get in to the lower lash line so close and would blend the edges so very nicely. I'm really, really, really loving this. This would also be very, very good for the inner corner of, like, if you have smaller eyes, definitely go with the mini set. Like, this would come in so handy for you guys. It's so beautiful to blend. We'll definitely do a halo eye today just to test these eye brushes to the fullest potential and see how it rolls. So far, so good. Then number 14, I have the number 14 mini. I do not have the original number 14, but this brush basically is like a blender brush but with a pointed tip. Now, the reason why I did not buy the original 14 is just because I wanted something more bigger but also a little pointier. So I have the number 16 in the original version. So this is how number 16 looks. So as you can see, this is number 16 and this is 14 mini. Generally, I'll show you the size of generally how the 14 original 14 is generally of this like shape, which is like a blender brush but like pointy. And this is exactly that, but in a smaller version. So that's how it would have looked. So excited, not like over the moon excited for the mini version, just because I don't know, like I have bigger eyes. I don't know how useful it will become, but we'll see. Maybe I'm not aware of like how much blending it's required, but we'll see. Definitely test out Rephr brushes today. So this is number 15 and this is 15 mini. Let me show you how both of these are. Like original number 15 is definitely much more rounded, I would say. It serves such a beautiful purpose of like blending out my crease area because it's just such a beautiful brush. I would have preferred if the mini version of the 15 would have been more rounded. I feel like this is definitely closer to the number 14 original brush just because this comes in more pointy. If I would have made this much more rounder, I feel that would have been so beautiful, but we'll test it out again and see how everything rolls. Now, what kind of an eyeshadow palette are we using? I don't want to go with Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath because these are like high quality eyeshadow palettes and I don't want to make the life much more simpler by giving them more easy eyeshadow palettes, but these are also really, really good eyeshadow palettes. I don't keep any eyeshadow palettes that are bad quality. Also, Nabla actually came out with their new palette, which is their side-by-side baby palette. I'm oohing and eyeing of this palette. If you know me, you know how much I love my rosy neutrals. And as soon as I saw those, there were few palettes that absolutely came into my mind. I immediately thought of the Too Faced Born This Way palette, which is like a rosy neutral leaning. So I feel like you can definitely create like a similar eye look using this palette. Then I did think of Sigma Warm Neutral palette. I feel like this is also a definitely more like warm, pinky, neutral leaning palette. This would come in super handy too. I obviously have Nabla palettes in my collection, but I was thinking that these like first row, except this, would come in super handy. Plus it also has these shades in that palette too. We'll see how much we can use this. Apart from these, obviously Patrick Ta Rose Dimension 2, you know how much I love that. I don't want to talk about it even more, but that stays like right on my vanity all the time. Let me show it to you. So this is Major Dimension 2 palette. This is also like rosy neutral leaning palette. Do I need that palette? Absolutely not. Do I want it? Yes. And then I thought about the Natasha Denona Retro palette. This might be a little bit more on the purple leaning side, but again, you can create totally like similar vibes with this palette too. So those are like some of my recommendations to get a very similar vibe. I'm also not going to use Patrick Major Dimension 2 palette because this is also like a top-notch quality eyeshadow palette. I want to see how these brushes would perform with like a mediocre, not even mediocre. These are good palettes, okay? don't get me otherwise, but those are like, for the money, they are like best quality eyeshadow palettes. So I majorly would dip into these palettes and see, maybe not all of them too, but these are the top palettes that are there in my collection. I definitely wanted to use my Nabla palette even more, so majorly I think I'm going to dip into the Nabla as well as the Sigma palette, but create like a rosy neutral kind of an eye and keep that to the test and see how much these Rephr brushes would perform. So if you're ready, let's begin. I also have Rephr like face brushes too, but I would say if you don't want to waste money and if you want to invest your money rightly, I would go for Rephr eye brushes rather than face brushes. Nothing wrong with the face brushes, but I also feel like I have like BK Beauty brushes, I have Morphe brushes, I have Real Techniques brushes. They all perform really well, but these eye brushes are definitely special. So I would lean a little bit more to Rephr for eye brushes. Okay, let's move. I am going to start with Rephr number 15 mini and see how that works on my crease. I still love my original 15 a lot. So I don't know how much would I use that. Let's start with a mini 15 and see how it rolls. I'm gonna go into Nabla, this Contigo shade, which looks very similar to the baby shade in the Nabla baby palette, side by side baby palette. Don't focus on the fake nails that I am wearing. Oh my goodness, you guys, I applied fake nails for the first time by myself. I've never done nails, like even gone to a nail salon place, but I don't know, I felt like I wanted to try these French nails. I did apply it. If you see from far, it'll look okay. You see from close by, you'll be like, oh my god, what disaster. Okay, let's go with 15 mini. I'm gonna start over with the outer and inner corner majorly, just because I am aiming for a halo eye, and then take that in the crease. I'm expecting nothing but just the best with these brushes because Rephr is one of my favorite, not one of my favorite brushes, especially for eyes. And for the price, I mean, we should be getting the best. So that's how the first shade has performed. I still would have definitely prefer the original 15 brush, just because this is more precise. 15, I just go all over the place and just blend for a easy one and done look eye look. But this is doing the job. Just that I am missing the roundedness from this brush. But still, blending really nicely. I'm gonna take my Rephr number 15 with no product and just blending the edges. See, just because of that rounded nature, it just blends everything together seamlessly. Look at that. Okay, going back into the Contigo shade, doing the same thing on the other eye too. Okay, now let's move on to this shade, which is Mea Culpa. This one, the extreme brown shade. That looks very similar to the Flemish shade from the baby palette. I am going to use the number 1 mini brush. I feel like that would come in so handy with this Mea Culpa shade. So let's take that. There you go. I'm just tapping. Yeah, this is perfect. Like the shape as well as the blend that it is giving me. Oh my god, I love this brush. Yeah, number 1 brush, mini, definitely the favorite so far. Oh, I cannot explain how beautiful the cut and the shape of the brushes. Look how beautifully it melted. Really pretty. I can also tilt the brush and then just blend the edges of those deeper shades. Oh, I love this brush. Definitely a favorite so far. Okay, now let's take that 15 mini and I'm going into this Contigo shade and then just blending the edges of that shade. Yeah, I prefer 15 to be used like this, like after number 1, just to blend the edges of those shades, like the deeper shades, just because of that pointed edge. It comes in very, very handy to blend the edges. Yeah, I really, really like that. Now I'm going to take the 13 mini brush, going back into that Mia Culpa shade, blowing the lower lash line. Oh, this is so tiny, so pretty. Yeah, you can definitely go super, super close to the lower lash line. Oh my God, I love this too. I love that brush. It's so tiny. You can get so precise to the lower lash line. So nice. I'm going into 14 mini shade and going back into this Contigo shade and just blowing the edges of the 13 mini just to blend everything out. Very nice. Very, very happy with this. Okay, now let's put NYX glitter glue right on the center of the eyelid just to play with some shimmers. So far we've just used 2 shades and I am not mad at the halo eye that I'm getting. I want to take a sparkly shade in the center just to see how that performs, because I know satin shades would really perform really well. I'm going to go into the Bella Beauty Bar Sun and the Sea palette and I'm going to go into this shade, which is Sandcastle. Definitely a lot more sparkly, and this would replicate the Full Moon shade from the Baby palette. So let's take that. I'm taking it on number 2 mini brush and apply that right in the center. Yeah, see, it picks up so very nicely. I'm not sprayed my brush or anything like that, but it picks up so nicely. I can easily say I still prefer my number 2 original brush, just because that does the job super quickly. I'll show it to you. I'll take the original number 2 brush, just taking the same amount of shade and placing it on the other eye. And see how quickly that takes my center of the eyelid so quickly, rather than this. Can you see that? So if you have bigger eyes, I would go with like the original number 2 or even the Max set. But for the inner corners, this would come in super handy, I would say. And then I'm taking the smaller blending brush, just cleaning the brush on my Sigma switch, and then going back into the Nabla palette. For the inner corners, I'm just going to take the shade I Promise. This is more of a satin shade, and I'm going to take that in the inner corner, just like that. And this is very similar to the shade Sunny Blanche, I think, from the Baby palette. I'm going to go back into the 14 mini, 14 mini brush and just blend the inner corner shade out a tad bit more, just so that it's not stark and it's much more softer. Okay, now let's take the 15 mini brush and then I'm just blending all of it together after placing that shimmer shade too, just so that everything just blends seamlessly into the crease. And now let's take a tiny brush, which is number 13 mini, and I'm going to go into the black shade, which also dupes the shade Ultra Noir from the Baby palette, and we also have Nabla from the Nabla Secret palette. So I'm going to take that extremely small brush, 13 mini, and that will come in super handy to deepen out the edges and also the lower lash line. So I'm just going to place it right there. My brush is actually wet just because my eyes were watering. So I'm just gonna wipe the brush just to make it a little dry. And then, yeah, I just wiped it on the Sigma switch so that all the wetness goes away and we can use this again. Going back into Nabla. Yep. And then putting it in the extreme outer and the inner corners, and also on the outer and the inner corners of the lower lash line. Such a nice brush. I really hope that Rephr comes out with this brush set individually. I think they might. And I don't have an affiliate link or code with Rephr. I don't think anybody has a code with Rephr, but my friend Steph here on YouTube, Steph's Beauty Stash, she has an affiliate link. Use her link, help my friend out. Use that link and take these brushes. It's so nice. I'm also gonna just take that number 1 mini brush and I'm just gonna blend after we place that black with no additional product. I'm just softening it out a tad bit just so that it's not stark. I'm gonna finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll come right back. And there you go, that's my final eye look. I really love how my eye look turned out, and it was super quick too. If I was not explaining all these brushes, I easily can do this eye look in like 5 minutes for sure. Let me tell you my favorites out of the set. Of course, all of these brushes worked very nicely and I used all the brushes. I personally feel my favorite out of the bunch would be my number 1 mini brush. I loved this shape for my inner and the outer corners. Absolutely would recommend like this in like a Black Friday sale. If this is like a individual brush, definitely pick this out. It's really good. My next favorite, like close second, I would say, is the 13 mini. This is so precise, especially for that deep dark black, dark brown shades in the outer and the inner corner, as well as my lower lash line brush. This was absolutely stunning. Rest of the brush, if you are picking 13, I think 13 obviously is much smaller than the 14 mini, if you can see. I feel like 14 mini is also very good for the lower lash line, but I feel like if you have 13, you would not miss 14 mini. 15 mini, I absolutely loved, but especially for blending out after the deep dark shades, I really loved this shape. But I feel like if you're listening to me, I feel like we need like we would have appreciated if there is another brush which is absolutely like a duplicate of the 15 but smaller. Like I want more roundedness to the brush as compared to the pointed tip. I feel like that would help the smaller hooded eye for buffing out that crease shade in the area for like smaller eyes. I feel that would have killed it. Absolutely. I know these are expensive, so if you're eyeing these brushes for a Black Friday sale especially, I would highly recommend number 1 and number 1 mini for sure. I love these style of brushes for blending, and both of these brushes are absolutely stunning. I would highly recommend number 15 brush for the crease work. Beautiful brush. I would highly recommend number 13 mini for the lower lash line and for the deepening out the inner and the outer corners. I would highly recommend number 2 brush for packing the shimmers on the eyelid. I don't want to recommend a lot of the brushes. These 5 brushes can definitely give you such a beautiful complete eye look. If you can add a number 6th brush, I would appreciate like a pencil brush from Rephr. This is number 26, but my number 26 is definitely much more chubbier. I know that they have like pencil brush which is smaller than this. That would be amazing too. But my recommendations definitely would be these, and a close companion would be 15 mini. Again, let me repeat, number 15, number 1 original, as well as number 1 mini. I have number 13 mini and I have number 2 original one. Those are my top picks from Rephr eye brushes. So I really hope that this video was entertaining for you guys and informative for you guys. And you could see all of these brushes in action and how these performed. I really loved it. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like this video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.